Hello everyone. If you're familiar with Wikipedia, you'll know that there's a lot of wonderful information on it, including a list of notable deaths for every year. I took the time to download all of the notable deaths for the year 2021. Let's see what I found. First of all, there was a lot of notable deaths in 2021, more than 10,000 of them. Now that means more than 30 notable deaths every single day. It didn't seem to be evenly spread throughout the year, however. When I compared the number of notable deaths per day for each month of the year, there was actually quite a marked difference, with a peak in January. Now, this is just an educated guess, but I imagine that's because January is in the middle of the Northern Hemisphere winter, and I imagine more people die in winter. Of course, remember the Northern Hemisphere is where most of the Earth's population lives. When I took my spreadsheet with more than 10,000 deaths on it, and I sorted them by age, suddenly I realized, as I looked at the really young deaths, that they weren't all humans. Most of the youngest deaths were in fact animals. Now, I didn't even know that they recorded notable deaths of animals, but there you go. And most of the animals recorded for notable deaths in 2021 were horses. People seem to care a lot about horses. And remember, it is what people care about, because it's only if people care about an individual that they bother putting them on Wikipedia. I guess horses, they care about horses because racehorses win a lot of money. There were other animals there: dogs and bears, dolphins, giraffes, gorillas, eagles, alpacas. Yes, there was even a famous alpaca. Look, here's one famous animal that died in 2021. His name was Bart the Bear 2. Now, he was famous because he was in the movies. You might have seen him in the movie Into the Wild. Now, if you saw that movie, remember the guy was on the bus at the end of his life, starving to death, and just when he was near death, a bear walked by. Well, the actor playing that bear was Bart the Bear 2. Sadly, the world lost Bart the Bear 2 in 2021. Bart the Bear 2 wasn't the only famous animal to go in 2021. Also, this gorilla. Now, I'm not going to try and pronounce this gorilla's name. I don't know whether that's a silent N or not. Nadakasi or Dakasi, but he was briefly famous in 2019 for photobombing this selfie. Another famous animal that died in 2021 was this dolphin. Winter was the name of this dolphin, and if you look carefully at the photograph, you can see that Winter is missing its tail. Its tail was caught in a crab trap. This dolphin was given a prosthetic tail. I don't have a photograph of the prosthetic tail, but I did see one. It looks fabulous. I'm sure Winter thought it was fabulous too. Not all of the notable deaths were even animals. At least one was a tree. This was a well-known tree growing in London that died because it got chopped down in 2021. A lot of people didn't want it to be chopped down, but it was chopped down anyway. Its name was the Happy Man tree because it was located near a pub called the Happy Man Pub. You know, the English love their funny names for pubs. Now, the humans who were notable deaths in 2021 ranged from a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old all the way to a 113-year-old. Now, it's worth mentioning at this point that of the more than 10,000 notable deaths in that year, more than 10% of them were due to COVID. COVID was very brutal to famous people in that year. The youngest notable death in 2021 is clearly a sad one. This Indian housemaid was murdered, and sadly she's famous only for the fact that she was very young and allegedly murdered by her employer. Equally sad was this young boy who was only 13 years old. He was shot by the police in Chicago. And again, he's now famous only for the tragic fact that he was shot at such a young age. Most of the notable deaths, of course, were much older people. The most common age was in the 80s. And of course that makes sense. To be famous, you need to first of all live long enough to be famous. So most notable deaths are of older people. I think there probably is a bit of bias among the notable deaths. Certain people are more likely to be written up on Wikipedia than others. People care about certain professions more than others. They care about sports people, actors, and yes, even politicians. So these people represented a big proportion of the notable deaths in 2021. One very famous person that died in 2021 was Michael Collins. If you're old enough, you'll remember that he stayed in the command module while the other two Apollo 11 astronauts descended to the moon in the lunar module. That was back in 1969. As I was analysing all the deaths in 2021, I occasionally noticed nuns. You don't expect nuns to be famous enough to be recorded in Wikipedia, but there were 7 of them, including this one. This nun, a Filipino nun, was famous for being both a nun and a confectioner. She invented this purple jam. I'm sure it tastes much better than it looks. Imagine being famous for being a confectioner nun. On the other hand, it's probably better to be famous for being a confectioner nun than for the reason this man was famous. Thomas Arthur Green was famous for being an American Mormon polygamist. Let's read about this person. He also died in 2021. After a high-profile trial, Green was convicted of 4 counts of bigamy and 1 count of failure to pay child support. He was also convicted because one of his wives had his child at the age of 13. The wife in question was his stepdaughter before they were married. She was the daughter of his first polygamous wife. Oh my goodness me. In total, he's served 6 years in prison. Well, the world has certainly lost an interesting person there. This person, I would say, is genuinely interesting. I didn't know what a polyglot was, so I had to look it up. A polyglot, this man who died in 2021 was a polyglot, is a person who can speak many languages. He had a YouTube channel which was all about language. His name was Moses McCormick. This man died too, Stan Shaw. Do you know what? I also had to look up to find out what a cutler was. Well, a cutler is someone who makes cutlery. This man, Stan Shaw, who died in, why does that say 2019? All right, I've made a mistake. That should say 2021. All right, in 2021, the world lost this man, this fabulous man. He was so good at his job that to get one of the knives he made, you had to wait 4 years. I guess that means he really was good. One of the most famous people to die in 2021 was, of course, His Royal Highness Prince Philip, husband and consort of the Queen. Husband of the Queen for more than 70 years, I might add. That's admirable. Well, you would only remember this fellow if you watched The Vicar of Dibley. If you watched The Vicar of Dibley, you would have seen this man. He used to go, no, 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 yes. Do you remember him? Oh, well, the world is worse off now without Trevor Peacock. Now, there's Benny Hill, but it wasn't Benny Hill who died in 2021. He died many years earlier. Ken Said was one of his sidekicks. Now, it's Ken Said over on the left of the photograph. The photograph's taken from the Benny Hill show that was so famous back in the day and so politically incorrect today. Lots of you would have seen this man on TV, especially older people, but they wouldn't have seen his face. Felix Siller didn't show his face on TV, but if you watched The Addams Family back in the 1960s, you would have seen him playing Cousin It. Remember, Cousin It was about half the size of other humans, and you could see no part of Cousin It other than very long hair that went down to the ground. Well, underneath that hair was Felix Siller. As I was sorting through all the deaths in 2021, fairly often I came across members of the French Resistance. Well, this lady, she's very cool, not just for being a member of the French Resistance. You know, even just being a member gives you a lot of credibility. But during the war, during the Second World War, she used to save Jewish children from the Nazis. So that makes her pretty fabulous. The world lost her in 2021. Oh my goodness me, yes. As I was sorting through all the names, I kept seeing rappers. But I noticed something about the rappers who were mentioned in the list of notable deaths. So many of them seem to die really young. There were 19 rappers who were among the notable deaths of that year. Their average age of death was 42. There were one or two of them that died at a decent age. Not many. Let's have a look at the sort of reasons why they died. All right, here's one example. This rapper, this Swedish rapper, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. He was shot execution style 1 week before he was due to testify about his kidnapping by a rival rapper. Really, what sort of people are these rappers that they're doing that? Look at this. There were 19 deaths of notable rappers in 2021. Those 19 included 2 that were shot, 1 that committed suicide, 1 that was stabbed to death, 3 that died in traffic collisions, 1 that died of unspecified causes, 1 that died of a cocaine-induced heart attack, one that died of an accidental drug overdose, one that died of blunt force trauma. That's out of just 19 of them. Goodness me, what's going on? Mothers, look after your rappers. And yes, the world lost this fabulous man. Archbishop Desmond Tutu, you remember him. He was Archbishop in South Africa, and as well as being well known as a very happy, charismatic man, back in the day he used to be an anti-apartheid activist. There's a very cool looking man. And that's it for 2021. Soon we'll have to be analysing all the deaths in 2022. Bye bye for now.